It all starts with everyone in the classroom looking completely clueless, because our MC, Choi Yongbum, is acting super weird. He is way calmer than he usually is. One of them thinks that seeing the guy this quiet is actually way creepier than his usual self. Unable to take it anymore, one of his classmates finally snaps. He demands that Yongbum say something and stop ruining the vibe, wanting to know right now what is wrong. The guy remembers how Yongbum always loved to play piggyback rides on everyone's backs when he was bored, but now he does not even care. He also recalls when they set up a karaoke machine in the PA room, so the whole school could hear the guy sing. The classmate keeps yelling in a panic, totally lost as to why there is such a sudden change in his behavior. Another classmate starts crying out of pure terror and begs Yongbum to just punch him already, because his silence is terrifying. He is absolutely sure the MC is acting like this because of some girl. The guy keeps making up theories and asks if he got some private surgery done or if he ended up using some illegal substances. Suddenly, a crazy idea pops into the classmate's head. He points his finger and asks if the guy started a video channel and is trying to clean up his image so he does not get canceled. Having zero patience for his nonsense, Yongbum lands a straight punch right to the classmate's face. The hit is so hard that the guy goes flying straight to the classroom floor. Right after that, Yongbum cracks a smile. The other students cheer when they see him smile and mock him, saying it is way too late for him to try to clean up his image on the internet. Everyone gets hyped up seeing Yongbum stand up and start walking, anxiously waiting for his next crazy stunt. The guy approaches a female student wearing glasses with a dark look in his eyes and calls her a model student. I told you it was because of a girl. This MC is such a simp. Completely terrified and shaking like a leaf, she stutters back an answer. The class panics, thinking he is about to attack an innocent girl, something he had never done before. However, he just scratches the back of his neck awkwardly and starts talking. To everyone's absolute shock, Yongbum simply asks how someone is supposed to study. Oh, come on, MC. A girl is a much better investment than studying. The bizarre question leaves the entire classroom in dead silence. The classmates and even the people standing near the door are completely speechless at what they just heard. A loud shriek of pure shock echoes through the entire school building at that unbelievable revelation. A desperate panic, the students put Yongbum on an emergency stretcher and rush him down the hallway. The guy bursts into the nurse's office yelling that it is an emergency and that his friend is definitely super sick. The nurse examines the guy lying on the bed and comments that he seems to be perfectly healthy. That is when the classmate reveals in total panic that Yongbum's major symptom is that he actually showed interest in studying. Hearing this, the nurse's face completely changes, and she goes into total shock over how severe the situation is. She immediately orders them to hold him down, tells them to call 911, and demands they bring the defibrillator to prep for an emergency surgery. Holding a scalpel in his hand, the friend asks in a panic if they should start by cracking Yongbum's head open to check his brain. Yongbum punches him to make him stop that nonsense, and the classmate immediately shuts up. After all that chaos in the nurse's office, the day goes back to normal outside the school. Yongbum sits back down at his desk, annoyed that he finally decided to study, and everyone had to make such a huge scene about it. He truly wonders if the idea of him studying is really that shocking to other people. The classmate answers out loud that of course it is shocking, making the guy wonder if his friend just read his mind. The friend introduces himself as Jo Chungshin and proudly says that reading his mind is basically first-grade material for a loyal follower, Yongbum, then starts to think about why he wants to do something that causes so much shock to people. Jo Chungshin shares his opinion that the shock is simply because the guy is trying to do something he has never done before in his entire life. The young man gets lost in thought, trying to remember what he used to spend his time doing in his everyday life. He soon remembers with a smirk and a somewhat wild look in his eyes. The truth is, his daily routine was pretty much summed up by getting into violent street fights against multiple opponents. He suggests getting into college using his talent for throwing hands, but his friend warns him that there is no such thing as an athletic admission for street fighting. Curious, the classmate asks what got into him all of a sudden to make him want this out of nowhere. He wants to know why the guy is so eager to start going to a university all of a sudden. Hesitant Yongbum looks away and starts remembering how it all actually began. He recalls a special moment when he saw a beautiful young woman walking under the falling cherry blossom petals. I told you it was because of a girl, I am literally never wrong. With his face slightly red, the guy remembers calling her older sister in a sweet way. Yongbum remembers when he proposed to the girl, promising her that he would never let anyone beat him in a fight. The woman then turns around to face him, and then she smiles and asks if she just got a confession from a high school student, and he says yes. The girl jokes that she is way too high maintenance for him and that he cannot even buy a drink yet, pointing out that dating a high schooler is a bit complicated. She thinks about it for a few moments. Then, the girl looks back at the guy and makes a challenging proposal. She suggests that if he can manage to get into the same college she goes to, she will seriously think about it. And after she says that, his ears turn bright red. And then, he says firmly that he always keeps his promises, creeping out his friend with an incredibly intense face. The model student wonders if this is all for love, while trembling in fear of Yongbum. The The classmate notices the girl shaking non-stop and concludes that she is just scared out of her mind by the guy mustering up a bit of courage. The model student asks if the guy wants her to help him study. Yongbum gets super excited and says that now all he needs to do is learn from her to make it into college. However, the girl quickly warns him that it is impossible, leaving the guy confused about why she explains that being a model student does not mean she knows everything, and that she only looks good because their school is a complete mess. The girl reveals that, except for 2 liberal arts subjects, she got super low scores in every other subject on the practice exams. She says she only dominates ethics and sociology, but cannot teach any other subject, leaving Yongbum with a totally blank stare. To make things easier, the friend compares the situation to fighting, explaining that she knows how to punch, but he will need another coach for jujitsu. Yongbum complains that she made the explanation way too complicated, but his friend reassures him, saying they will learn one step at a time. The guy then asks if he should just learn the other subjects from the school teachers, but his friend warns him that the faculty there is a lost cause. The girl suggests hiring a private tutor, but Chungshin argues back, saying their school's reputation is way too bad to ever get one. The friend then proposes looking for some other student in the school who is really good at English, math, and literature. The girl crushes the idea by pointing out that she is already the #1 student in the entire school, meaning there is literally no one above her there. Seeing no way out, the loyal follower yells in despair, begging Yongbum to just give up already because he has tried everything. Yongbum grabs his friend tightly by the shirt and lifts him off the ground, making the poor guy complain that he cannot breathe. The model student shyly says that there is actually still a way, and Yongbum snaps at her for taking so long to speak up. The young girl explains in detail that the issue of not having good tutors only applies to their school. She then suggests that they could very well try to find a willing tutor at some other school in the area. The idea of looking for a tutor in another school gets the guy thinking. The next day, they head toward an urban area packed with tall commercial buildings under a clear blue sky. Upon arriving at their destination, Chungshin looks around completely confused and asks where on earth they are. They stand in front of the entrance of an impressive building and realize it is a huge public library. While the guy admires the place for the first time, his friend goes into a dramatic panic, saying his DNA literally rejects that study environment. The girl with glasses explains that their school is part of a group of the 4 worst educational institutions in the district. That district is famous because people firmly believe that none of the students around here have any interest in ever opening a book. However, the girl reveals that even in that forgotten academic wasteland, there are still brilliant exceptions who work super hard. She explains that while she dominates sociology, there is a student who is amazing at literature who studies at Gangnambuk High. The young girl adds that Seonman High also has an extraordinary student who is #1 in English. Finally, she points out that Choensa High is home to the best math student, completing the dream team they need. Yongbum listens closely to everything while the girl gets ready to deliver the final play of their plan. She announces that they must recruit these students as tutors, and reveals that their first target for literature is right inside that library. The guy asks her straight up if getting their help will really be enough to get him into college. The classmate smiles and guarantees that with the support of this talented group, his chances will definitely skyrocket. Hearing that, the guy's eyes fill with a serious and focused determination to achieve his goal. Yongbum then gets ready and asks his crew if they are ready to start the search. He cracks his knuckles with a terrifying smile and says he is going to secure his first tutor, leaving the girl with glasses looking pretty worried. They reach the door of the study room where there is a sign hanging that demands absolute silence inside, completely ignoring the warning. Yongbum kicks the door open and yells in the middle of the room, demanding someone teach him literature. The girl rushes to quiet him down and whispers that he needs to be quiet, making the guy complain that the place has way too many complicated rules. However, the friend notices something in the room and gets a serious, somewhat tense look on his face. As they look inside the room, they realize the place is packed with a bunch of punks playing on their phones and chilling with their feet up on the desks. Another student couple takes the chance to snap photos and mess around right in the middle of the library, completely ignoring any rules. Yongbum comments, intrigued, that this place definitely does not look like it was made for people to study. However, they notice there is a single girl completely focused on her books. Deducing she must be the top literature student, Yongbum walks up to her and orders her to be his literature tutor, while his friend scolds him, saying he should ask more politely. The girl who was studying just throws a very cold and annoyed side-eye in the intruder's direction. She looks extremely stressed out and decides to simply ignore their presence, going right back to focusing on her books. Yongbum is shocked to be completely ignored, but his friend tries to calm him down, guaranteeing she will accept if he just asks the right way. At that moment, the guy notices a very strange detail in the stack of her workbook copies. He realizes she is solving multiple copies of the exact same book and wonders if the secret to high grades is this repetitive learning style. The friend, however, notices that the names written on the workbooks are all different and that even the handwriting changes from one to another. While the girl gritted her teeth in anger, Yongbum wonders in a naive way if this is another secret study method. Suddenly, one of the students sitting there slams her hand on the desk, interrupting all that small talk. A blonde punk girl stands up furious and yells at them to shut up and get lost right now. The guy is pretty surprised to be treated in such an aggressive and blunt way. He gets annoyed and says she is the one being loud, but his partner begs him to hold back and have some patience. The girl who was studying lets out a quiet curse and starts shaking with nerves from all that chaos. The blonde punk walks over with a threatening face and starts staring down the studious girl up close. She asks if her classmate has lost her mind, leaving the girl completely cornered and speechless. Without any hesitation, the punk grabs her hair with extreme force and yells furiously, making the young girl shriek in pain. Yongbum asks what is going on over there and deduces that the girl must be suffering from what people call school bullying. The punk yells furiously, asking if it is really that hard to keep her mouth shut or if her words sound like some kind of joke. The other punks around mock them and tell So Young that talking is useless with someone like her, suggesting a new teaching method. So Young says she prefers to go with the traditional method of punishment, since she considers her classmate someone who is incapable of learning. Right after that, she lands a hard slap across the girl's face, claiming she needs to leave a deep trauma so she never forgets it. The other punks start laughing out loud and cheering at the physical assault, finding the sound of the slap amazing. The poor hurt girl hangs her head, trying to hold back her tears in front of all that public humiliation. Suddenly, a hand grabs the blonde punk from behind, stopping her attack and leaving So Young extremely pissed off. It turns out Yongbum walked up and brutally grabbed So Young by her blonde hair. With a dark and terrifying look, the guy warns her that it was already stated earlier for everyone to keep absolute silence in the library. He throws her backward without any mercy, ripping out a crazy amount of the punk's hair. Her crew jumps up from their chairs in complete shock, yelling So Young's name as they witness the scene. The girl who is being bullied looks up, totally stunned by the sudden turn of events. So Young goes into total panic and starts screaming when she realizes she lost her bangs and is left with a massive bald spot on her head. One of her sidekicks charges forward furiously to attack the guy, but another punk backs away terrified, recognizing him as Choi Yongbum. While the first one asks who this guy is, the other explains in a panic that he is the tyrant who turned the entire district into a living nightmare. He recalls with terror the guy who became obsessed with a comic book about punishing bad students a year ago. The punk remembers that Yongbum simply took down every single bully in the area, with that idea stuck in his head. The gang remembers the unforgettable beatdowns and the violent hits the guy delivered without any mercy. Meanwhile, on the streets nearby, a delivery guy speeds up his motorcycle, going along his usual route. Another memory shows Yongbum chasing after a speeding motorcyclist at an unbelievable speed. He was using a decibel meter to justify that going over the allowed sound limits was a crime, using it as an excuse to attack them. Right after that, he delivered a violent punch that knocked the rider straight off the moving motorcycle. Back in the present, the leader of the punks gives a cynical smile and grumbles in irritation as he faces the guy. Holding a spiked bat, the leader claims he was already looking for an excuse to get him and asks how he dares to touch his crew. He steps forward with the makeshift weapon in hand and asks if Yongbum is begging to get destroyed right then and there. Facing all that intimidating threat, Yongbum just keeps a neutral and completely bored expression. He completely ignores the armed bully, turns to the hurt girl with glasses, and calls her the #1 in literature. The guy warns her that he is going to ask just one more question and wants to know if she can actually teach him how to study. The injured young girl widens her eyes in fear, unable to put together any answer right away. Curious and anxious, she asks why someone as violent as him would have any interest in studying. At that exact moment, the leader of the punks runs furiously behind his back to deliver a major blow with the bat. With absolute calm, Yongbum smiles and answers confidently that his main goal is to get into college. She questions him back, wanting to know what she would get in return if she agreed to help him with this difficult task. The guy admits he might not have money to pay her, but promises something very valuable if she agrees to help him. He just plants his feet firmly on the library floor, preparing his body to pull off a quick counterattack. Yongbum throws a powerful punch, guaranteeing he will destroy absolutely everything that bothers her from now on. The impact of the punch is so devastating that it breaks the wooden bat and sends the leader of the punks flying away. The other gang members who were watching everything are completely terrified and speechless at that display of power. The guy keeps attacking the other bullies who step up to him, showing he won't spare a single soul. Yongbum does not care if his opponents are built like dinosaurs and keeps taking down every single one with extreme ease. He guarantees he will take care of any obstacle or person who dares to get in the way of the girl's study sessions. Smirking from ear to ear, the guy extends his fist and asks her what she thinks about making this deal. Faced with so much violence and conviction, the short-haired girl looks at him in surprise, weighing whether she should actually accept the deal. She just wants to confirm if he truly wants her help to study, and the guy says yes, while the other punks groan in pain on the floor. The model literature student glances at the defeated bully on the floor and gets visibly tense about the situation. Feeling the weight of that decision, she gulps as she realizes just how dangerous Yangbum can actually be. Having no other options, she pulls her red phone out of her pocket and holds it out toward the guy. She asks him to save his number there, promising she will get in touch right after to schedule their study sessions. Lying on the floor and completely humiliated, the leader of the punks breathes with difficulty as he watches the two of them walk away. He grashes his teeth in pure rage and silent curses Yangbum, holding a deep grudge over what just went down. The next day, the story returns to the setting of Inmyeol High School, under a clear sky. The students in the classroom celebrate happily, playing piggyback while carrying the guy on their backs. The friends happily conclude that Yangbum is finally back to his normal state, since finding a tutor relieved his anxiety. One of them asks if the game is fun, and everyone cheers as they see the guy crack a wide smile of satisfaction. However, Chung-shin suddenly stops walking as he notices someone standing right in front of them in the hallway. Yangbum is surprised to see the girl there and asks why she is not at her own school right now. She answers that she came because he asked for help with studying, explaining that her school is so disorganized they do not even track student absences. The guy jokingly comments that she skipped class just to see him, making the young girl blush and look super embarrassed. Annoyed and flustered, she yells, calling him weak, and asks if he has some kind of issue or if he prefers that she just leaves. They enter the senior classroom to kick off their study session. A workbook is placed firmly on the desk so they can start studying. The literature tutor stands in front of them and says, "It is now time to hit the books." Hearing this, Yangbum and Chung-shin stare at the girl, completely frozen and speechless. Chung-shin whispers, asking if they are really going to study on the very first day, and if he should teach the tutor a lesson, and Yangbum agrees. The tutor gets annoyed by the whispering and complains that they asked for help, but are now saying they are not ready. She steps closer and explains that nobody studies only when they feel like it, but rather by forcing themselves to do it. The young girl asks which college he wants to get into, and Yangbum answers all confident that his goal is Seoul National University. The girl is shocked by his answer and asks how his grades are, but the guy says he has absolutely no idea. Chung-shin steps in and reveals that his grades are trash in every single subject, leaving his friends surprised. He adds that although the guy knows how to read, his knowledge of English and math is extremely basic. The friend even reveals some of his personal details, which makes Yangbum super annoyed by the invasion of privacy. The tutor sighs at the situation and says that Seoul National is completely out of the question, making the guy consider a local college. She stares at him in disbelief and asks if he only knows those two college options in the entire country. Yangbum is shocked by the question and asks if there really are other colleges besides those two. The tutor is left completely speechless and horrified by such pure ignorance. She decides to leave, thinking he is a hopeless case, while Yangbum begs for forgiveness and promises to work harder. Suddenly, someone grabs the tutor's hand firmly to stop her from leaving the room. The classmate with glasses appears smiling and recites a poetic line about dreams and the heart to try to convince her to stay. She proudly reveals the author's name, showing she perfectly dominates her study area of ethics. The tutor argues that those two only act on emotion and have zero brains, making this teaching mission impossible. However, she is cut off when she feels her phone suddenly vibrating inside her coat pocket. The girl looks surprised at the device, which will not stop glowing and demanding her attention with notifications. On the screen, she sees threatening messages asking if she lost her mind skipping school and running away like that. The literature student hangs her head in silence, visibly worried about the bullying she just received. She drops her backpack back on the desk and says that either way, she did not expect much from him and that they will start with the basics. With a very serious and focused look, she states firmly that she has decided she will indeed help him study from now on. Hearing her confirmation, the guy lets out a very confident and satisfied smirk at her choice. He steps in real close and thanks her happily, guaranteeing she is the first tutor who did not give up on him right away. He smiles from ear to ear and says that now his passing score on the college entrance exam is completely in her hands. Blushing hard and super flustered by the physical proximity, she yells, telling the guy to back away immediately. While the duo decides which subject to start studying, the scene cuts to the outside of Gangnambuk High School. The atmosphere seems calm at the neighboring school, but the vibe in one of the classrooms is about to get pretty tense. A girl holds her phone with her hands shaking from pure rage as she realizes her messages were completely ignored. This is the punk So Young, who gets furious seeing she was left on red and starts plotting her revenge. She considers going after the tutor personally, suspecting the girl is with the group of punks from the day before, remembering the humiliation she suffered at the hands of the Inmyeol High crew. She gnashes her teeth with pure hatred. She stands up and yells at the guys in the classroom, asking if they have no shame for being beaten by a single person. The injured punk tells her to stop complaining and guarantees they are just as mad about that loss as she is. So Young rants, asking if they are just going to take this sitting down, but the other sidekick in a neck brace says otherwise. The sidekick tells her to use her brain, explaining that the tutor's disappearance gives a pretty good clue about who should act next. Realizing who the guy is talking about, So-young is completely surprised and shocked by the revelation. She wonders if the feared Kwok Chulwoo is the one who is going to take a drastic step against the rival group. Chulwoo is furious in his room and wonders how Yongbum dared to mess with something that belongs to him. With a terrifying, dark look, the guy decides he is not going to just sit around doing nothing about this boldness. Meanwhile, the story returns to the sunny and busy setting of Inmyeol High School. A literature test is graded and shows that Yongbum managed to get only 15 points on his exam. However, the most impressive and mysterious thing is that he got the first 7 questions right consecutively. The classmate with glasses asks how he got such a low score in ethics, concluding that his performance is a complete disaster. She then turns to the literature tutor to find out how the guy performed in that specific subject. The tutor explains that with this level, he would only qualify for some sketchy majors that are left over due to a lack of students in the country Chungshin celebrates big time, happy to know his friend has a chance to get into college, even though he knows it was an insult. However, the tutor gets everyone's attention by revealing that she noticed something extremely weird about the guy's test. She points to the exam and highlights the intriguing fact that he got the first 7 questions right in a row. The group tries to figure out how he did that, and Chungshin explains that his friend found the first questions too easy. The tutor asks why he got the rest wrong, and the classmate with glasses says the guy simply knocked out in the middle of the test impressed. She wonders if he would have gotten more right if he had not fallen asleep, and suggests giving him a new deadline to solve it all. Chungshin shakes his finger and warns right away that doing that would be completely impossible for him. He compares his friend to a lion that needs to sleep a lot, stating that reading more than 7 questions a day leaves him exhausted. The tutor suggests he take the test standing up, but his friends know very well that he is capable of sleeping even in that position. The tutor suggests giving him caffeine to keep him awake, but the friend says that would only make the guy sleep with more energy. She then asks at what point the guy actually manages to stay completely focused. Chungshin takes an extremely serious stance as he begins to explain the only situation where his friend concentrates. The friend's gaze suddenly turns sharp as he notices a suspicious noise coming from outside. With that, Yongbum stands up from his desk all of a sudden as a strong rumble starts echoing through the room. The guy focuses all his attention on his hearing, perfectly catching the sound of a crowd approaching. He completes his previous line of thought and reveals that the only time his friend focuses is during a fight. Yongbum now has a completely different and focused look, showing he is ready for battle. Looking toward the window, the guy warns his crew that the enemies have finally arrived. In the school courtyard, the rival group led by Chulwoo yells out the MC's name, calling him out for a confrontation. The leader of the gang angrily demands that Yongbum hand over the literature tutor right now. Hearing the dangerous punk's voice outside, the young tutor starts shaking with terror. Noticing her fear, Yongbum throws a quick glance over his shoulder at his tutor to evaluate the situation. He asks if it is because of that guy outside that she has been so tense and scared from the very beginning. He turns his attention back to the entrance and warns the group that the threat is about to crash their classroom. The armed gang keeps screaming the MC's name outside, demanding he show up to fight. Chulwoo yells once more, ordering them to hand over the girl without any more delay. The student goes into pure panic, realizing she is surrounded with no good escape route. The guy calmly watches the young girl's desperate reaction as he gets ready to take action. He asks if that punk is indeed the one responsible for keeping her so terrified since earlier. The intruders start smashing the school's glass windows, spreading panic through the hallways with extreme aggression. One of the punks kicks the school's main door with all his might, completely shattering the front glass. The school principal tries to stop them, demanding explanations, but Chulwoo coldly ignores him and tells him to get lost. The principal is outraged and asks if they do not value their own lives. While the gang keeps advancing without fear, Chungshin appears to defend the school alongside Yongbum, telling the invaders to back off if they want to leave in one piece. Chulwoo just stares at them with an extremely cold and intimidating look, showing zero intention of backing down. The principal gets hyped and tells his students to finish off their rivals, but Chungshin asks him to stay out of teenagers' business. Watching from afar, So-young bites her lip in anger as she sees the rivals who humiliated her the day before right in front of her. She urges Chulwoo to act fast, asking if he is really going to let those insolent punks get away with this provocation. Chulwoo calmly says he does not want to cause an even bigger scene, even though his sidekick thinks the damage is already done. With a piercing and dark look, the invading leader makes it clear that there are strict limits to his patience. He walks up to Yongbum and warns him with pure coldness that things change when people try to steal what belongs to him. Smirking sadistically, the invader tells Yongbum to stop meddling in his love life once and for all. Hearing the word love come out of that creepy guy's mouth, Yongbum is completely confused and clueless. Out of nowhere, the MC gives his rival a tight and warm hug, leaving him completely in shock. Yongbum declares that, as a fellow man, he fully supports that sincere feeling, which leaves the rival even more speechless. However, the friendly vibe changes in a split second when the MC quickly grabs him from behind and starts a hostile move. Yongbum warns out loud that he cannot hand over his tutor and lifts the rival's body into the air with extreme physical ease. With a devastating suplex, he slams Chul-woo headfirst directly against the hard floor of the school hallway. Despite the brutal impact of the surprise attack, Chul-woo manages to recover in midair and quickly slides backward to gain distance. Chul-woo gets up boiling with rage after the hit and screams furiously at the MC. One of the punks yells, declaring the start of the fight, and orders everyone to attack at once. Chungshin cracks a wide, excited grin, stating that this brawl was exactly what he wanted. He charges at the first opponent and lands a powerful punch in the middle of the chaotic melee. However, an authoritative voice yells, ordering everyone to stop, making the rival hesitate immediately. Everyone freezes as they see the literature tutor herself walking firmly down the middle of the hallway. Chungshin is confused by the sudden interruption and watches the girl approach with determined steps. She takes a serious stance, determined to put an end to that unnecessary conflict right then and there. She looks at the shattered windows and broken doors on the school floor, realizing the severity of the destruction. With a deeply distressed and frightened look, she pleads quietly for them to stop the fight. She promises she will transfer schools if they stop fighting, remembering how this all started some time ago. She recalls when Chul-woo started showing interest in her, openly confessing that he liked her. The girl was extremely confused by that direct and unexpected confession of affection from the most feared guy. After that, all of her classmates started surrounding her, and Brown Noser kissing up to her because of his attention. Even So Young used to be friendly at first, enthusiastically praising her looks with a bright smile. In the beginning, her school life seemed way easier, since the punks did not seem to have any intention of hurting her. However, that fake peace lasted very little time, and her life started falling apart when he asked her for help with studying. She remembers the day he took her to the front of a residential building, leaving her pretty suspicious. He revealed he had borrowed the apartment from a friend and guaranteed, smiling, that there were no cameras inside, sensing imminent danger. She argued tensely that they had only known each other for a month and were not even dating. She turned her back and warned him she was leaving, asking him to never invite her to that kind of situation again. The punk stared at her in complete silence, leaving the air around them extremely icy and tense. With that, he grabbed her wrist hard, stopping her from leaving in an aggressive and scary way. The guy grumbled in irritation about how embarrassing that rejection was for him, while she remained terrified. With a malicious look, he muttered that he wanted to see how much longer she could keep playing hard to get like that. The scene changes to the girl opening the classroom sliding door with a look of doubt and curiosity. However, she was caught off guard when she got hit dead on by a raw egg thrown directly at her head. Right after that, one of the punk's sidekicks delivered a cowardly kick to knock her to the floor without any mercy. She fell to the ground with her hair all messy, crying from humiliation, while the attacker stared at her with zero remorse. Watching all that malicious scene up close, So Young and another classmate laughed out loud, finding it all hilarious. The girl asked what was wrong with them and why they were acting so mean all of a sudden. While she was down on the floor, someone brought a phone close to her face to show her a specific image. Looking at the device's screen, she let out a gasp of pure despair as she realized what they had captured. The image showed her and Chul-woo in front of the building, and the person cursed her, saying that photo explained everything. So Young asked mockingly if she had enjoyed acting all innocent and popular all this time. With a wicked smile full of malice, So Young decreed that the girl's school life was completely over. She recalls that over time, Chul-woo's obsession got even worse, making her feel a massive amount of anxiety every single day. Even so, she kept holding on to hope of escaping that situation, since she had less than a year left to graduate. She thought she just needed to hang in there for a little while longer, but things suddenly spun completely out of control. Now, in the present, seeing her new friends fighting for her, she wonders if the right thing would be to just surrender. With tears in her eyes and a heavy heart, the young literature tutor tries to hold back her massive sadness. She makes a hard decision and starts walking slowly toward the rival group to hand herself over. Under the gaze of everyone present, she moves with slow and heavy steps, crossing paths with Yongbum. Seeing the girl walk over to surrender, Chul-woo cracks an insane smile and celebrates his victory. Chungshin panics seeing the tutor walk away and questions what will happen to Yongbum's studying and the college entrance exam. The girl passes right by Yongbum in absolute silence, while he just watches her walk past with a serious look. The guy stays lost in thought for a moment, weighing the sacrifice she is about to make for them. Suddenly, Yongbum calls out to her firmly, making the girl stop walking immediately. He asks with all the sincerity in the world if that is really what she truly wants to do. With tears streaming down her bruised face, she repeats the question in her head about what she actually wants at that moment. Chul-woo completely loses his patience and charges forward wildly. He orders her to hurry up and says with extreme rage that the young girl will never escape him. The girl shakes and clenches her fist, feeling completely cornered by the rival's terrible obsession. She gnashes her teeth real hard, consumed by a deep distress and agony. With her head down, she mutters in a low voice, begging for someone to finally show up and save her. With tears streaming from her eyes, she desperately calls out for help directly from Choi. Young-bum Chul-woo gets even more enraged by her attitude and screams, cursing at the girl uncontrollably. However, he is cut off as he takes an incredibly violent punch right in the middle of his face. Young-bum delivers the blow with all his might, sending the rival leader flying backward from the impact. So Young and the other punks scream in despair as they see their powerful leader get hit like that. The classmate with glasses feels a weird chill in the air and looks back confused, trying to understand what is happening. She asks why Chung-shin is also shaking, and he says awkwardly that shaking is his signature move in these situations. With an expression of terror, the bald guy reveals in a low tone that it has been a very long time since he last witnessed something like this. The friend explains that it has been ages since he saw Young-bum get so extremely furious and terrifying. The punks around notice the MC's rage and panic, suggesting they need to run away as fast as possible, with an overwhelming presence. Young-bum tells everyone to shut their mouths and decrees that he will now carry out the sentence against the guilty. Young-bum formally accuses Chul-woo and his gang of insulting his love, making the rival think he has completely lost his mind. Having no patience for speeches, Chul-woo orders his gang to attack the MC mercilessly and bring the girl back. Completely enraged, he lists his rival's crimes, which include trying to steal his tutor and hitting on her with that busted face. Without giving any chance to react, the guy delivers a devastating punch and smashes the face of the first opponent who approaches. The MC keeps taking down the henchmen with extreme ease, declaring that their punishment is to be taken out of the game. Suddenly, the guy turns his sharp gaze toward the enemy leader, ready to settle that score. Chul-woo tries to land a fast punch, but Young-bum dodges the attack with incredibly quick and agile motion. The invading leader is completely shocked and terrified as he realizes he missed his shot and is totally exposed. Young-bum readies his iron fist and declares the special punishment reserved for the leader of the rival gang. With a merciless look, he announces that the final sentence for Kwak Chul-woo will be a physical neutralizing of his manhood. Chul-woo goes into total panic and mentally says goodbye to his father, asking to meet again in the next life. With tears in his eyes and injured, he imagines his own father mourning the tragic fate that awaits him next. Without any hesitation, Young-bum delivers a devastating punch right to the rival's private area, finishing the fight once and for all. Young-bum prepares to deliver the final blow and announces the physical neutralizing of Chul-woo's manhood. Desperate, Chul-woo thinks of his father and asks for them to meet again in their next lives. The punk imagines his own father, mourning in his thoughts over the terrible fate that is about to happen. Without any mercy, Young-bum delivers the devastating punch directly to Chul-woo's private area. The impact of the blow is so violent that it sends the rival leader flying through the air in a completely humiliating way. The other punks are horrified and scream that hitting another man's private area is completely crossing the line. With a dark smile, Young-bum answers that it is fine, since the rival is not even a man anymore. From now on, Young-bum charges forward quickly and delivers one more brutal attack to guarantee the job is done. The punks panic as they realize he just destroyed whatever side the rival had left. The leader of Gang Numbuk collapses to the ground, completely defeated and with zero strength to keep fighting, lying on the floor. Chul-woo lets out an extremely high-pitched scream of pain that echoes through the entire hallway. Chung-shin is confused by the high-pitched scream and wonders why that tough guy is making such a squeaky sound. At that moment, Chung-shin starts breaking into a cold sweat as he realizes what actually happened there. The bald guy deduces that the opponent's hormone levels just plummeted instantly, changing his voice to a soprano. Chul-woo curses his own situation in agony, while the others find that high-pitched ending extremely bizarre. The rival gang falls into despair as they realize their main hope of victory was completely crushed. Pretty hurt and humiliated, the defeated leader mutters that this whole situation is way too embarrassing. He tries to plant his hands on the ground to stand up, wanting to beat Young-bum to make up for that disaster. But he quickly realizes his body is completely locked up in pain and he simply cannot move. Seeing he has no choice, he decides he must somehow postpone that confrontation for another time. Chul-woo then calls out Young-bum's name, getting the MC's attention, who looks back curious. The punk screams that he will never give up on Gukeo, stating he will fight for his love until his very last breath. Young-bum looks at him with boredom and asks if the rival is begging him to end his life once and for all, with a determined and sweaty look. Chul-woo ignores the threat and proposes that they make an official bet. He suggests they have a final showdown next week at his school, putting Gukeo up as the prize. Gukeo is in total shock and completely outraged to hear her name being used as a bargaining chip. The MC's friends get mad at the absurd idea of betting a person and question why they should even accept that. However, Chul-woo seriously states that accepting this proposal would be the best option for their own group. The rival explains that since Young-bum won using a cheap trick, his men would never accept that defeat so easily. He warns that the gang will keep chasing Gukeo and bothering everyone if they do not settle this officially. Because of that, he suggests they resolve this dispute once and for all in a fair and clean way. The guy challenges the MC directly to settle everything in a final, one-on-one combat between them. Chulwoo guarantees that if he ends up defeated in this new duel, he will walk away once and for all without causing any more trouble. Yongbum stays silent for a few moments, just watching the determination of his opponent on the ground. Meanwhile, Gukeo holds her own arm, showing a lot of worry and tension about the direction of that conversation. In a direct and confident way, Yongbum finally accepts the bet proposed by his rival a while later. The scene moves inside the school, focusing directly on the senior classroom sign. Inside the classroom, the classmate with glasses is shaking all over with nerves as she tries to focus on her studies. Chungshin asks what is wrong with her, and the girl confesses she is worried but too scared to say anything. Yongbum says there is no reason to worry because he will win either way, making his friend fully agree. The bald guy states that punks should be treated like punks, and that crushing him now will prevent future problems. The girl with glasses points out that the students at that school are terrible and questions when they are actually going to focus on studying. Without giving much weight to the scolding, the MC scratches his nose lazily and asks what she suggests. Gukeo remains silent for a moment, thinking deeply about the complicated situation they are caught in. She seriously questions if he is absolutely sure he can win, and the guy answers confidently that he is just too strong. The tutor decides to focus back on the subjects, leaving the classmate with glasses shocked by such calmness in the face of danger. She explains that since the MC trusted her to be his tutor, it is her duty to fully trust his abilities as well. Hearing that sincere declaration of trust from his tutor, the MC is left speechless and surprised. With a slight smile on her face, the private teacher decides to add one more detail about that whole bet. She concludes by saying that all this chaos might actually end up helping a lot to finally boost the guy's school grades. The story takes us to Gangnambuk High School, where the tense vibe is already taking over everything. One of the students watches from afar and thinks that Kwak Chulwoo has become a true monster that is hard to handle. He is impressed to realize that Chulwoo managed to get back to his physical peak in just a single week. In fact, the guy even considers that the punk leader is now even stronger than his old self. Even so, he gulps and wonders if that will be enough to manage to defeat Choi Young-bum. Chulwoo remains quiet for a few seconds before getting his underling's attention. With an intimidating tone, Chulwoo suddenly grabs his ally by the neck and asks angrily why he is looking at him like that. He asks if the kid knows how he got here, stating he never gives up when he truly wants something. He guarantees with conviction that no matter how long it takes, in the end, he will always be the big winner. The ally tries to argue, saying they had agreed to fight only once, but Chulwoo does not care. He smiles insanely and states that promises can be broken, declaring that the fight only ends when he wins. Suddenly, So-young kicks open the classroom door in a rush and calls out her leader's name with an urgent look. She tells him to look outside immediately, warning that the group from Inmyeol High is invading the place right now. Meanwhile, in the rival school's courtyard, Yongbum walks calmly, carrying a wooden chair in his hands. With a focused look, the MC steps forward without showing any kind of fear or hesitation in front of the rival gang. From up at the window, Chulwoo watches him approach and celebrates that his opponent finally decided to show up. So-young also looks out the window, but gets completely confused, not understanding what the invaders plan to do there. She points out, terrified, that right in the middle of the school courtyard, the MC just put the chair on the ground all of a sudden. To everyone's surprise, Yongbum sits down comfortably at the desk as if he were in a regular classroom, accompanied by his tutors. The guy starts writing in a book, making the enemies wonder if they are actually studying. Chungshin confesses he is worried about the plan, but Gukeo answers that it is too late now to be questioning it. The tutor recalls that Yongbum always falls asleep if he solves more than 7 questions, but that fighting works to wake him up. She concludes that since the guy's situation is very unique, they will have to adopt a highly unusual strategy. Her idea is simply to make the MC fight someone every single time he manages to finish answering 7 questions. The friend yells worriedly that this is way too dangerous, pointing out that Yongbum's goal is to get into the National College. Gukeo fires back, saying the guy is in no position to be too picky, and that if there is no easy path ahead, she completes by saying with lots of determination that they will have to pave a path by force themselves. While they discuss the plan, the MC's eyes start getting heavy with tiredness after putting so much effort into the task, unable to resist the heavy sleep any longer. Yongbum's head drops directly onto the study desk. Chungshin goes into a panic and notices in terror that his friend fell asleep exactly after completing the 7th question of the exercise. Suddenly, the bald guy hears fast footsteps approaching the courtyard and goes on high alert at the sound. Kwak Chulwoo comes sprinting at high speed toward the MC while screaming his name furiously. With a completely crazed expression, he demands at the top of his lungs that they hand over Gukeo once and for all. Chungshin goes into total panic, seeing the rival running at that speed, and tries to yell to wake up his best friend Gukeo, just watches the punk's threatening approach and gulps, waiting for how the situation will end. Oblivious to all the danger around him, the MC keeps sleeping soundly with a line of drool running down. Without any hesitation, Cholwoo delivers an extremely hard stomp right in the middle of his opponent's study desk. However, in the very next instant, the attacker widens his eyes and is surprised to notice something weird about the impact. To the aggressor's shock, the MC managed to hold the desk firmly, even while lying down, and blocked the attack. Slowly, the MC starts to lift his head, while his tutors and his best friend watch the scene relieved. Yongbum lets out an exclamation of surprise and starts to form a smile, having finally managed to wake up. With his eyes wide open and an excited look, he declares to his opponent that now he is completely awake. The plan to make him fight to wake up every time he fell asleep after the questions seemed to work perfectly. Cholwoo's sudden arrival with all that fury ended up serving as the perfect alarm clock they needed. The rival keeps demanding, screaming for them to hand over the girl, completely blinded by the hatred and obsession he feels. Thanks to the noise of the attack, the tutor's wild plan of using fighting as a stimulus proved to be a total success. Yongbum feels totally refreshed and ready for action after having his sleep interrupted in such an abrupt way. With an extremely fast movement, the MC shoves the desk back to push away the opponent's initial charge. Cholwoo dodges the thrown object and yells furiously that a cheap trick like that would never work against him. Without wasting time, the attacker advances rapidly and lands a violent punch right in the middle of the lazy hero's face. Cholwoo's punch makes Yongbum lose his balance in the chair, leaving him pretty surprised by the attack's force. Next, the punk leader lands a well-aimed kick, knocking the MC to the ground with total violence. Desperate at the scene, Chungshin screams, mourning that the worst is about to repeat itself once again. Watching everything from above, Cholwoo's underling notices that things are very different this time around. The rival leader celebrates for managing to stay firmly on his feet and curses his opponent with extreme anger. Yongbum apologizes, saying it was not his intention to hit him there that time, but Cholwoo tells him to shut his mouth. Cholwoo remembers his feelings from the past and reflects that what he felt for Gukeo was true love. He recalls that she was like a miraculous flower shining right in the middle of all the dirt of his chaotic life. The guy confesses in his thoughts that he wanted to have her for himself, but that the feeling went way beyond mere desire. In reality, he wanted to become a better person just like her, and that was why he made a decision in the past. To impress her, he set up a perfect and super cute study room with the goal of learning literature. Cholwoo accuses Gukeo of treating him like an insect in the past. While looking at her standing next to the MC gashing his teeth in pure rage, he questions why she agreed to give private lessons to someone like Yongbum. He yells furiously that he will never forgive them for this, and swears he will destroy everything in front of him. Consumed by an uncontrollable fury, the leader of Gangnambuk runs toward the hero to deliver another attack. Cholwoo hits the hero with a powerful punch, showing that all his brute force was renewed with that hatred. Feeling the power of the hit on his arm, Yongbum is shocked by his opponent's sudden increase in strength. Cholwoo keeps advancing tirelessly, firing another quick hit in the direction of the guy's face. The rival presses with an aggressive sequence of attacks, trying in every way to break the MC's defense. One of the punches gets past the guard and hits Yongbum's face dead on, making his head spin from the violent impact without giving him time to recover. The attacker delivers another hard and direct punch right in the middle of the MC's face. With his nose bleeding heavily from the impact of the hits, the guy stumbles back and seems to be in trouble. The classmate with glasses is terrified by the rival's strength, but Chungshin calmly says that performance is natural. He explains that the enemy district is an extremely violent area, and being the leader there proves Cholwoo's power. The girl asks if Yongbum is at risk of losing, and the bald guy admits yes, but reinforces his total trust in his friend. Chungshin points out that although the MC seems to be only defending himself now, he will come out victorious in the end. The bald guy gives a smirk and begins to reveal the true reason for his unshakable faith in his childhood friend. To everyone's surprise, he reveals that Yongbum is a natural masochist who actually loves getting hit in a fight with an insane look. The hero licks his own blood and shows that he gets stronger and stronger the more he takes a beating. Cholwoo notices his opponent's disturbing smile and gets creeped out, realizing the guy is actually enjoying himself. Annoyed by the boldness, the punk charges forward screaming that he is going to wipe that smug smile off his rival's face. The MC just guards his face while he keeps taking the brutal punches and laughing uncontrollably, with the enemy's fists colliding against his arms. The MC lets out a sigh of pure satisfaction and pleasure. With an extremely dark look and his teeth bared, he declares out loud that this fight is way too much fun. Chungshin cheers, seeing his friend smiling from ear to ear, announcing that the real battle is starting right now. The narrator explains that whenever Yongbum gets hyped up like this, his attack power increases by 500%. Without giving his rival time to escape, the MC lifts his heavy hand right in front of Cholwoo's terrified face. With terrifying strength, he grabs his opponent and smashes his face directly against the dirt of the courtyard floor. Choking from the hard impact, the defeated leader despairs internally, trying to understand what is up with this monster. With shaky vision, he wonders where that crazy and sudden amount of crushing physical strength came from. Ignoring his rival's questions, Yongbum joins both fists high up, ready to deliver the final blow. The hero brings his joined hands down with all his might against Cholwoo's face, who lets out a muffled groan of extreme pain. With zero intention of stopping, the MC starts a sequence of brutal punches, denting his opponent's cheek. The next punch hits the other side of Cholwoo's face with the same devastating force, shattering any chance of a reaction. Yongbum keeps unloading an insane and non-stop sequence of heavy hits against the defenseless opponent on the ground. Completely bloody and battered, the punk pleads with difficulty for the hero to spare his life. Completely ignoring the plea for mercy, Yongbum finishes the fight for good with one last devastating stomp on his rival. Watching that terrifying scene from up at the window, So Young shakes with fear and whispers that the MC is a total psycho. The punks can barely believe their eyes as they contemplate their powerful leader brutally knocked out. To the shock of everyone present, the MC defeated the biggest punk at that school with terrifying ease. Gukio suddenly yells to the MC, warning him that now is the major opportunity they had been waiting for. She tells the kid to take advantage of the fact that he is completely awake after the fight and come answer the questions right away. With a slight, tired smile on his face, the MC turns back to focus on his true and difficult academic task. Time passes quickly outside the school, while the group concentrates on the guy's studies. On the courtyard ground, Kwok Chul-woo starts regaining consciousness very slowly and opens one of his eyes with difficulty. Quite dizzy, the punk sits up, resting his hand on his head, and tries to remember what on earth just happened there. He feels his own face totally sore and full of bruises, getting confused by his deplorable state. Looking forward, the guy spots Yongbum sitting at the desk with an extremely groggy face and wonders what that is. The MC is visibly fighting against an overwhelming sleepiness. With his head nodding and spinning from pure laziness, Chul-woo is perplexed to realize that he was the one knocked out in the fight, yet his opponent is the one who seems to be passing out. Leaving doubts aside, the rival decides to take advantage of the hero's obvious weakness to try to attack once more. He runs furiously with his fist raised, screaming with all his might that he absolutely refuses to give up. Suddenly, Chul-woo's eyes widen as he notices something completely unbelievable right in front of him. He sees the MC falling asleep in a comical way over the desk, showing zero intention of fighting. The punk starts sweating with terror as he gets a terrible feeling of déjà vu about how that scene might end. Even terrified, he decides to bet all his chips and tries to land a final punch to end that dispute. The rival focuses all his attention on the sleeping hero's face, preparing the impact with extreme determination. However, in the exact millisecond before the hit, Yongbum's head drops heavily onto the book. Realizing the hero accidentally dodged by falling asleep, the punk goes into absolute panic once more. Chul-woo misses the punch completely, loses his balance from his own momentum, and starts spinning out of control. The guy holds his own head, extremely dizzy and confused, not understanding how on earth things ended up that way. While his rival is dizzy, Yongbum stands up quickly and lets out a long sigh of relief for being done. With tears of pure emotion shining in his eyes, the hero happily celebrates that he finally managed to finish the homework. Chung-shin congratulates his friend in an excited way, while the tutor praises his effort and suggests they all leave together propped on the ground. The injured leader tries to protest and asks where they think they are going, insisting the fight is not over. However, his legs completely lose their strength all of a sudden, and his knee slams hard against the dirt of the ground. He goes into a total panic, trying to stand up and noticing that his own body simply refuses to obey his commands. Gnashing his teeth in pure frustration, the punk finally realizes he was defeated in a humiliating way. Lying on the ground, he watches the group walk away calmly toward the sunset while whispering Gukio's name in a melancholy tone. Chul-woo lets out a desperate cry, calling for the girl, who glances back over her shoulder with a slight, bittersweet smile. Crying with rage, he questions why she accepted Yongbum but not him, since he also worked super hard to study. Hearing the fallen punk's desperate venting, the MC stops walking and watches his tutor's reaction. With a deeply sad look, Gukio reveals that in the beginning, she also had the sincere desire to help him with his studies. She confesses she used to believe that troubled people like him could change their lives if they just had a single chance. Chul-woo sheds tears of frustration and asks with a shaky voice the reason why she gave up on him then. The girl closes her eyes for a moment, feeling the weight of that sad reality before giving her final explanation. She vents, yelling that no matter how hard she tried to teach him, the punk could not even learn the basic alphabet. Hearing the painful truth about his own lack of brains, the punk leader starts laughing hysterically and crying with embarrassment. The guy's desperate and dramatic crying of regret echoes loudly through the entire school courtyard. The group of friends keeps walking back home under the evening light, leaving all that chaos behind for good. Holding her study book with care, the private teacher lets out a light laugh and comments on how epic all of that was. She looks warmly at the MC and asks in a friendly way if he actually did well on his test that day. The story takes us back to Inmyeol High School, where the day starts with a huge commotion. Wearing pixelated sunglasses and holding a red megaphone, Chungshin makes a massive noise to kick off a party right behind him. The other school punks also join in on the fun and start dancing in a very hyped way. Everyone screams wishing Yongbum a happy birthday, who was holding a strawberry-decorated cake while wearing a party hat. Suddenly, the classroom door swings open with a click and cuts off all that loud celebration noise. Gukyo and the classmate with glasses enter the room and ask surprised if today is actually Yongbum's birthday. Chungshin explains excitedly that the party is because his friend finally managed to finish answering every single question on the exam. Gukyo wonders what goes on in their heads, and the classmate with glasses advises her to get used to it for the sake of her mental health. At that moment, the MC calmly calls out Gukyo's name, leaving his tutor quite surprised and blushing. Nervous about the proximity, she stutters, asking if he was by any chance expecting her to say thank you. Yongbum holds out his hand with a blank face and simply demands she hand over a birthday present. Having no patience for the guy's antics, she slaps a brown envelope into his hand and says, "The present is right there." Yongbum is surprised she actually brought something, while Chungshin jokes, asking if it is the deed to some land. But when they open it, they realize it is just the literature exam sheet that the MC had solved yesterday. However, Chungshin decides to look closer at the sheet and slightly lowers his pixelated sunglasses. The bald guy is left completely jaw-dropped and speechless as he checks the grade his friend got on that test. He points shocked to the top of the sheet and yells, asking why the final result was so incredibly high. The other punks comment surprised that a 68 is a true anomaly for someone who never studies. Chungshin accuses his friend of cheating on the test, stating desperately that cheating like that is a serious crime. Yongbum shuts his mouth with a well-aimed punch, making the bald guy immediately agree that he solved it all by himself. The classmate with glasses asks if he did well because he had a lot of time, but Gukyo reveals that reality was very different. The tutor explains that the actual time the MC took to solve those questions was only 2 hours. She adds that to finish literature and social studies in such a short time, he normally should have run out of time. Still down on the classroom floor, Chungshin asks confused how he managed to pull off such an academic feat. Gukyo jokes, saying that although Yongbum's head is empty, his natural intelligence is extremely high. She details that his reading speed and comprehension are great, allowing him to deduce difficult words from context. The teacher adds that he can accurately identify which subjects he needs to study to improve his grades. Looking thoughtfully at the paper, Gukyo starts feeding a little hope about her student's future. She weighs that there is a chance a miracle with a minimal probability might actually end up becoming reality soon. The great miracle would be making a punk, like Choi Yongbum, manage to get into the prestigious Seoul National University. Hearing those encouraging words makes Yongbum's heart race with emotion, and he blushes slightly, hyped by the revelation. Chungshin and the other punks lift the hero into the air and celebrate his intelligence. Yongbum points directly at Gukyo, leaving his teacher surprised and not understanding what he plans to do. Without any hesitation, the gang also starts tossing Gukyo into the air while thanking her for her dedication in classes. Desperate and red with embarrassment, the private teacher screams at the top of her lungs, telling those idiots to let her go. The classmate with glasses cuts off the excitement, saying it might be a bit too early for them to start celebrating like this. She questions what his result was on the social studies part, leaving Chungshin instantly tense and awkward. The bald guy comments that his grades must be low because of memorization, but the MC fires back, saying he learns easily because he is a genius. The girl with glasses seriously explains that the real issue there has nothing to do with the difficulty level of the questions. She reveals with worry that the big issue is actually the MC's highly unique personal ideology. Hearing that Yongbum, Gukyo, and Chungshin trade confused looks, not understanding where she is going with this talk. The MC lets out a murmur of doubt, showing he is completely lost at his classmate's statement. The group gathers again outdoors in the school courtyard to calmly analyze the hero's performance on the exercises. Chungshin happily celebrates the fact that his friend did not fall asleep this time. Noting that he is finally getting used to it, Gukyo asks about the social studies results, and the classmate reveals that his grades remain exactly the same. She shows the shocking tests and reveals that he got a score of 2 in society and culture, plus an unbelievable 0 in ethics. Yongbum is intrigued by the result, while Chungshin suggests outraged that the exam questions must be wrong. The girl with glasses explains that the true mystery behind the grade becomes clear when analyzing the answers he chose. Gukyo notices in surprise that, regardless of the question, the guy always chose options that defend absolute regimes and single ideologies. She concludes by saying that Yongbum simply chose the alternatives he agreed with, thinking the rest were wrong. Gukyo reaches the bizarre conclusion that Yongbum's true goal in the future is to become a dictator. The guy asks what that word means, and Chungshin explains that it is a super strong guy who does whatever he wants with everything. Chungshin thinks the idea is wonderful, but Gukyo points out that the people who suffer under that kind of regime do not find it cool at all. The MC fires back, saying people just need to win and not get beaten, leaving the teacher speechless. Gukio wonders how he turned out like this, and the girl with glasses theorizes it is because the kid has always lived like a king. The model student suggests that the best solution right now would be to improve the environment of the school where they study. With a slightly nervous smile, she begins to detail how that change would work in practice. She explains that they need to create a situation where the MC is stopped from doing simply everything he wants. Chungshin gets mad and yells that there is absolutely nothing in this world that his hero cannot achieve. The MC makes a gesture with his hand to calm down his best friend, who keeps looking quite heated about the situation. Yongbum asks how they are going to do that, and the model classmate answers that she knows the perfect specialist for the job. She reveals that it is her ethics and beliefs mentor, guaranteeing this person will definitely manage to fix the guy. The MC gets pretty curious and confused, hearing about his classmate's mysterious tutor. The day remains sunny and clear, while the scene shifts to show the reaction of the other students at the school. From up at the school windows, several students start looking down with expressions of complete suspicion and doubt. One of Inmyeol's punks wrinkles his forehead confused and wonders what on earth is happening down there in the courtyard. They spot Yongbum sitting and studying in the courtyard and comment, gossiping, that they heard he decided to start studying. The gang goes into total panic hearing the rumor, screaming terrified that the end of the world must be very close to happening. One of the guys tries to laugh at the situation, stating confidently that there is zero chance their leader would do something like that. However, he soon starts crying in despair and denial, begging for that to be just a malicious rumor. The story then shifts to a large and luxurious residential apartment complex in the city under the blue sky. Behind a door with a no entry sign, it is possible to hear some highly suspicious and muffled giggles. Someone is lying down laughing a lot while having fun reading comics and watching cartoons in her locked room. The girl bites into a chip in a very lazy way while she keeps relaxing and enjoying her moment. With round glasses and a smug smile on her face, the beautiful young woman with black hair comments to herself that she already expected this lying comfortably next to a plush penguin. She confesses she prefers things that are a bit more stimulating. Suddenly, her phone starts vibrating on the nightstand, showing a call that she quickly decides to answer right away. The device screen shows the contact indicating that the person calling her is none other than her own younger sister. The scene focuses on the front of the residential complex under the warm, late afternoon light as the group of friends walks. The group finally arrives at the location, and the MC comments in a curious way as he looks at the apartment entrance. He wonders thoughtfully if that is really the house of the model student in his class who always gets top grades. Yongbum confesses he is nervous since it is his first time at a girl's house, and his friend accuses him of ruining the mood. Chungshin jokes, saying that ruining the mood of things is his specialty, making Gukio let out a long sigh of boredom. The guy asks the reason why they came there, and the girl with glasses answers obviously that they came to hire a teacher. She finally reveals the mystery, sharing that the great specialist she mentioned before is her own older sister. The MC widens his eyes, surprised to find out that his new tutor is the sister of his model classmate. The girl with glasses reaches out to open the electronic door lock, which immediately unlocks with a click. She opens the door, making way for the guys, and yells, warning her older sister that she just got home. From the living room entrance, they hear a female voice whispering a painful groan coming straight from the couch. They spot the beautiful young woman with black hair slouched on the couch, suffering from a terrible hangover after drinking too much the night before. The newcomer is Mo Se-yeon, 29 years old, who begs in a weak voice for her sister to bring her a glass of water. Urgently, Chungshin is completely frozen and fascinated, seeing the breathtaking beauty of the classmate's older sister. The model student hands over the glass of water, annoyed, and scolds her, telling her to dress decently in front of her friends. Se-yeon complains about the lecturing right as she gets home, grumbling lazily that all that nagging only increases her headache. Next, she takes a more serious tone and says that if her sister wants to ask her for such a big favor, she needs to do something first. Out of nowhere, the older sister snatches the round glasses right off the girl's face and tells her to stop wearing those things. The two guys are completely in shock, seeing the model student's glasses being taken off her face like that. The girl with glasses panics immediately and covers her face with her hands, letting out a scream of extreme embarrassment and despair. Without the glasses, the girl reveals an amazing beauty, leaving everyone jaw-dropped at her true, gorgeous look. She demands her glasses back, claiming she cannot see a thing, but the sister fires back saying she bought contact lenses for her to wear. With a quick movement, the older sister starts taking off her socks to feel more comfortable at home. Suddenly, the model student hugs her sister in an affectionate way, showing all the love she feels for her. But right after, she complains with anger and embarrassment about how that attitude of her sister is extremely annoying. Se-yeon gives a satisfied smile and jokes that now her younger sister finally looks like a real human being. Watching the model student's natural beauty without her usual glasses, Chungshin instantly blushes to hide his embarrassment. The bald guy puts the round glasses on his own face and jokes that he cannot see a thing either. Yongbum punches him in the face for messing around during a serious moment, making his friend scream in pain. Time passes outside the building while they gather in the living room to convince the new tutor to help them. Mo Si-yeon opens a can of soda and officially starts the conversation with the guys, who remain sitting on the floor. She takes a sip and asks if they really want her to fix the behavior of that troubled kid. The young woman with black hair questions why she should accept the job, asking straight up if they are rich. Yongbum confesses nervously that he does not have a single dime, showing that he gets very tense around older women. Si-yeon rejects the deal, claiming she is too busy, but her sister fires back saying she is currently unemployed. The young woman says her sister should focus on her own grades at school instead of getting involved in other people's business. The younger sister takes a serious stance and tells the unemployed sister to remember something very important. Lying back on the couch, the older one quotes Nietzsche and grumbles that life is a lonely journey and everyone looks out for themselves. However, the model student does not back down and decides to counter using her sister's own past arguments. She reminds her sister that she herself said in the past that doing good deeds with no strings attached increases faith in humanity. Si-yeon points her finger in return, reminding her that their mother said looking after her sister is her duty until the end of her days. The girl with glasses puffs her cheeks in anger, while the guys notice that she is much more active without her glasses. Chungshin and Gukeo watch the confusing argument, realizing that rejection is imminent and the plan will be hard. Faced with all that complicated situation, the bald guy wonders with a lot of worry what they should do now. He fears that if they do not get a tutor, the MC's grades in social studies will never improve. The hero remains silent for a brief moment, seeming to hatch a clever plan in his own mind. Yongbum looks at the young woman lying on the couch and asks straight up if her problem is the lack of a job. The guy cracks a confident smile and guarantees that if that is the case, he has the perfect solution to resolve it. Mo Si-yeon stops mid-sip at that exact instant, showing extreme surprise and interest in his statement. Some time passes, and the story returns once more to Inmyeol High School, under the sunny sky. It is possible to hear the elegant sound of high heels echoing through the quiet school hallways. Si-yeon places her official ID on top of an office desk and lets out an unbelieving laugh at everything. Dressed as a teacher, she smiles in the middle of the classroom and confesses surprise that his crazy plan actually worked. The model sister goes into shock seeing her sister there, questioning in disbelief how she managed to become a substitute teacher. The older one boasts with her arms crossed, revealing that she did indeed graduate with an education major in the past. The girl with glasses asks if it is right to hire her without formal processes, but Chungshin guarantees they resolved everything. In the flashback, the school principal breaks into a cold sweat of terror and tells the hero it would be very hard to hire a new teacher. However, Yongbum holds a suspicious yellow folder and asks coldly if that looks like a polite request to him. He shows a secret file with embarrassing photos of the principal, suggesting in a threatening way that he cooperate with the plan. Back in the present, the MC and Chungshin smile with complicity for managing to close the deal through blackmail. The bald guy internally celebrates the victory, believing they will finally manage to do something about his friend's rebellious personality. The new teacher thanks Yongbum and promises to buy him a drink in the future, while the hero asks what the first lesson will be. Mo Si-yeon gives an extremely wide and terrifying smile, indicating that the first activity will not be pleasant for the guy at all. Holding a wooden stick, she orders authoritatively that the lazy hero immediately take the push-up position. Chungshin shakes with fear, seeing his friend being punished, knowing he will have to deal with his bad mood for hours after that. The teacher glares at the hero for speaking informally to her on her first official day of class. Yongbum remains in the push-up position and breaks into a cold sweat hearing his name pronounced in such a serious way by his tutor. She firmly explains that the big goal of teaching ethics is to make the student understand values and find righteousness in life. She adds that since the guy only does what he wants, he will first need to learn to consider other people. The tutor admits that going through this learning process will be incredibly difficult and exhausting for him. Pressed by her firm words, the MC takes a deep breath and mentally prepares himself to face that major challenge. With his eyes wide open with fury and grit, Yongbum yells to the teacher, stating he is ready for the training. With a focused look, the teacher confirms that the first stage of his training will begin immediately. She delivers a hard strike to the MC's back, demanding out loud that he finally learn to speak politely. Chungshin screams in absolute panic seeing his best friend being hit with such physical violence. Suddenly, a guy kicks open the classroom door, abruptly interrupting the start of that punishment. The kid throws himself in front to take the blow in Yongbum's place, leaving the hero extremely confused by the act. Chungshin widens his eyes in shock, immediately recognizing the identity of the guy who just crashed the room. The narrator reveals that the brave intruder is none other than Kim Min-chul, known as the #2 loyal follower of the group.